What's up, guys? I'm Josh Pate. That's Steve Wiltfong. It is the weekly edition of the Wiltfong Recruiting Whiparound. Kind of a D-line flavor this week, Steve. You said, I'm in the mood for defensive linemen. Well, we got it. Let's serve it up. And let's start with West Virginia going into Norman, OU to face the Sooners this weekend. Big visit weekend in general, but I want you to zoom in, like specifically, what are some names you have your eye on?
Well, like you said, it's a D-line buffet on this episode of the Whiparound, and we're going to start in Norman because three of the nation's best are headed out there on official visits to watch Oklahoma take on the Mountaineers. One of them's already committed, and Derek Moore out of Baltimore St. Francis. Had a chance to watch him play on national television earlier this year, and then saw him in the summer at the Under Armour Future 50. And that's a high motor, powerful, hard-nosed kid that I think is going to bring the right intangibles along with the talent to Oklahoma as they transition, as you have heard, from the Big 12 to the SEC. And Oklahoma, their defense under Alex Grinch has gone from ranked in the hundreds to ranked in the top 30 and improving every year. And I think they're coming on the heels of signing the best class on that side of the ball that I've seen since I've been at 24/7 Sports, which is the beginning dating back to 2010. So I love the way this defense is trending. You and I both agree this is a program that's in the conversation to win the national championship year in and year out. But here's two other guys coming in this weekend that I think improve their chances of hoisting a crystal ball at some point down the road. And that's Marvin Jones Jr. He's a top 20 player in the top 247 player rankings out of Fort Lauderdale, American heritage. Jamar Cain has had Oklahoma in the middle of that one for the whole process. And I think the Sooners are near the top as they battle Alabama and Florida State and Ohio State for Marvin Jones. But that would be a massive recruiting win for them, obviously. And then you have Chris McClellan from in-state from Owasso High. I think I said that correct. Did I say that correct?
It's got to be close.
Got to be close. Well, anyway, McClellan is a guy that Oklahoma was actually a little behind on offering, and he blew up nationally, so they've had to make up some ground here. But I think Calvin Thibodeau and company certainly have showed Chris McClellan why Oklahoma would be the perfect fit for him. And it's not always when you get the ride, get the ticket to the ride, but is that ride right for you? And so I think that Oklahoma has made a move with McClellan. He was just at Florida last weekend. The Gators are in the thick of it. Ohio State was the leader in the summer. I think that's trending away from the Buckeyes now. And you got Oklahoma and Florida in a good spot. And then he's going to go visit Alabama later, just like Marvin Jones. So Oklahoma is in some heavy SEC recruiting battles right now, Josh. And here's a chance to make a statement for guys that as they go into that league, these are the kind of guys that they're going to be playing against week in and week out at the top of that conference. And it'd be nice if you're Lincoln Riley to have a couple of those cats on your side to run alongside Derek Moore. And I think Oklahoma is a major player for both, and we'll see what happens. And then they're also bringing in an unofficial visitor, the number one player in the top 247 in 2023, Lebius LT Overton, who's coming with his dad, Milton Overton. His father played at Oklahoma. They were at the Sooners Champ U barbecue this summer. Now he's coming back. Oklahoma has the number one recruiting class in 2023 right now. They are number 12 right now in 2022. So still recruiting at a very high level. I think that Oklahoma is going to be able to come into the SEC and be competitive right away. But these are three guys, and Derek's already in the mix. That would be massive for them moving forward.
One of the guys, and yes, he is a defensive lineman that we get asked about all the time, is Walter Nolan. And so if you're flipping through the SEC on CBS game of the week last week, you got Alabama versus Florida. He was one of several big-time guys in attendance. So, Steve, we got to ask, because we do every week, what is the latest with Walter Nolan?
Well, he loved it, and he loved his visit to Florida at the beginning of the summer. He took his official visit the first weekend of June, returned a week later or a few days later to do a photo shoot with his mom. Florida led at that time, and I think there's been a lot of dancing around with those top schools of who's leading, but it was a terrific trip. We know that Walter Nolan loves the players at Florida and gets along with those guys in the defensive line room, obviously led by Gervon Dexter, who he's talked quite a bit about in the past. But he loves the coaches, thinks that they can develop them. Talking to his dad today, the atmosphere of the swamp blew everybody away, and so they love that experience, and they think Florida's on the cusp. And I think they're a major player. And his dad brought up, he's like, people were kind of losing their minds when he dropped the top three, and it was Texas A&M, Tennessee, and Georgia. So schools like Alabama, Florida, and Michigan were out. They're not out. They're way in this. And I think after this weekend, Florida's way in it. But with Walter, you just got to hang in there and keep recruiting him hard. And you don't know how it's going to shake out come December.
Hey, I got another defensive lineman for you, Steve. How about Anthony Lucas? About 6'4.5", 275. We're going all the way out to Arizona. I don't know what the state nickname of Arizona is, but whatever that state is, he resides in it. What's the latest with Anthony Lucas?
Well, when you talk about these defensive linemen and you have them get off the bus in order of physical prowess, he might be the first guy that you send right off there, because he, talking to college coaches and people that have seen him, they just talk about how massive he is, just massive hands, massive wingspan. He's a guy that brings so much versatility across the front, just an explosive, powerful, high-motored football player. He's wanted by all of the top schools in the country right now, and there's a few that I'm keeping an eye on. I think that Texas A&M is just in a terrific spot for him. If tomorrow was signing day and I had to crystal ball him on the 24/7 Sports crystal ball today, I would give it to A&M. But I'm not sleeping on Notre Dame. High academic family. The parents love the Irish. He's going to go back to Notre Dame for the USC game. He's going to go back to A&M. I believe it's for the Alabama game. I think those two have positioned themselves nicely. I think his parents like the academics at UCLA also. I think that visits to Alabama and LSU this summer were awesome. And you know, he was just at Miami this past weekend. But if I was kind of ranking these schools and where I thought they would land, I would start with A&M. I would probably go to Notre Dame next, and then Alabama and LSU after that.
The one guy that at some point or another in these guys' careers, they're all going to be chasing is Arch Manning. And so Arch Watch, which you have been like the conductor of lately, was in Athens, Georgia this past weekend. Now, the Bulldogs made easy work of the Gamecocks, but I think, Steve, I saw more pictures of Arch Manning in the crowd than I actually did the game. And so that stands to reason. I got to ask you, what's the latest with Arch Manning? What was that trip to Georgia like?
As a guy that watches college football, what were your thoughts on that?
So I'm looking at it, okay? So, you know, everybody reads way too much into random pictures. And so I got buddies, because I grew up in Georgia, they're texting me, hey, look at this, look at this, look at this. So the eye Josh is going crazy, Steve. I'm at a game. I don't have time to look at it. But I notice a familiar theme. All these dudes that are texting me are Georgia folks. I figure either there's been a bad injury in the Georgia game or there's been a great play in the Georgia game. Nope. All of them are texting me a picture of Arch Manning in the stands. And because they happen to catch him in the perfect lighting, perfect time, he looks like he's having a great time. They took the logical 15 next steps to say, I guess this means we lead. Hey, why don't you ask Wiltfong when you talk to him this week? And so basically I'm doing the bidding of my friends back home. Steve, where's Georgia in all this?
Well, I think they're near the top. That's just my kind of guesstimate. I went and visited Arch recently, and he told me that Athens was probably the best college town he had been to, and he made some rounds in the summer. I think that they like Coach Monken and his offense and the pro-style offense and the trajectory of the program at Georgia and the caliber of players that they're recruiting. I think that when you look up and down their coaching staff, there's guys that have relationships with the Manning family. Obviously, that starts with Matt Luke, the former head coach at Ole Miss, who's now coaching the offensive line at Georgia. You know, with all the family ties to Ole Miss, they got to know Coach Luke well, and I think they like him a lot. So I think when you look at the prospects that were on, I talked to a lot of prospects that were on campus, and they were like, oh, I hung out with Arch. I was with Arch. So I think Arch might be the biggest lightning rod recruit for his peers ever too. So whoever gets Arch is going to have a really good chance of signing the nation's #1 recruiting class, because I think he's got a great personality, Josh. He's a guy that's fun to be around. When you're at Isidore Newman, his teammates love him. He's very engaged with all his teammates, and he loves football. He's one of the leaders on his football team. He's a junior captain. He's already helping put the practice plan together. He's already helping put the game plan together. His coach raved about his retention level and his high football IQ. And then obviously he's uber talented. But Georgia, they're certainly in it, but he's a young man. He's still going through his process. I'm not expecting a decision until next spring or summer based on the timeline that they kind of spoke on. But you and I both know recruiting can change at any point. But he's got several more visits scheduled this fall. A game at Ole Miss where Uncle Eli Manning's going to get his jersey retired. He's going to go back to Alabama where he loves professionalism of that program, and said it would be a dream to play at a school like Alabama as well. He talked about Ole Miss and Lane Kiffin and Coach Levy, and talking football with them for 4 hours, and how Lane Kiffin blew him away with his knowledge of offense. And Texas, Coach Sarkisian and Coach Milwee, those relationships are as long as any of them, and love Sark's ability as a play caller. Isidore Newman, where Arch plays, their theme this year is all gas, no brakes. That might sound familiar. I think they may even have a couple Texas plays in their playbook. That's how close they are to Sark and Milwee. Clemson's going to get a return visit for Florida State. They just love the people at Clemson. And he pointed out just how everyone just seems to love being at Clemson. And here's a side note. Dabo Swinney's recruiting A.J. Harris, 5-star corner from Alabama. And I think that Clemson and Alabama have really emerged. But AJ's dad said something cool to me, or I thought it was cool. And we hear a lot of recruiting stuff doing this job. But one thing Dabo Swinney said to AJ Harris is, I'll promise you one thing, AJ, if you come to Clemson, I promise that I will love you no matter what. You will have my love no matter what happens. And so that AJ Harris loved that, because he's getting promises about playing time, opportunity to come in and make an early impact. And with Clemson, there was no pitch for that. It was just, hey, man, this guy's going to love me if I come play here. And I think they just like the people at Clemson, AJ, Arch Manning. But Arch Manning's talking to David Shaw at Stanford. He visited LSU. We're still in the early phases of his recruitment. But if you're Georgia, I think you like your position early in this race. You just got to keep pace.
If you're watching the Whiparound, Uncle Steve loves you no matter what. Yes?
I do love it. I love all of y'all, and
Boom.
Appreciate you tuning in.
Thank you, Stephen. We'll see you at the same time next week.